Well, hi, everyone. My name is Ben Beckhart. I'm the Secretary and Treasurer for the Republican Liberty Caucus of Arizona. Joined today with our Chairman, Dave Kahn. And then we also have State Representative Bret Roberts here with us. We're just going to ask him a few questions. Bret is, he's one of the best Republicans we have down there in the legislature right now. He scored perfect on our scorecard. He lines up well with us, so we endorsed him. He's a leader on criminal justice reform, which we really like. He's also done some good bills on tax reform and some other good stuff. So we're a big fan of Bret. One of my favorite things about Bret is when the legislature was hit by COVID and they started doing the Democrats started talking about sine die. He stood up on the floor and just called him out right then and there. It was awesome.
Now, I've heard several members at least 3 times at this point mention sine die. And I, for one, am adamantly against sine die at this point in our session. There is a lot of legislation that's been worked on, legislation that all of us have worked on, legislation that members on both sides of the aisle have been asking for years, that they would like to get accomplished. And to mention that you want to sine die at this point and just put all of that away and throw it away is ridiculous. We're talking about earned release credits that Mr. Blackman worked on over the interim, that I sat on his ad hoc committee, that people are in DOC right now that are depending upon this to come out. This is absolutely ridiculous that people on the other side of the aisle are mentioning sine die. There are people that are depending upon legislation that I've worked on since before the last session ended that could help them obtain jobs, obtain housing, and stay out of prison, reduce our recidivism. This is absolutely ridiculous to even contemplate throwing away an entire session. With that, I'm an aye.
My first question, I just wanted to ask Bret about the possibility of a special session and the governor's executive orders. We're all kind of upset about the governor's executive orders and how it's closing businesses, closing schools, restricting our liberty. We all want something to be done about that, but a lot of people are out there talking about, why can't we do a special session? Why can't we just go in there and overturn the governor? But the reality is it's not realistic. We don't have a 2/3 majority. We have 3 senators in the Senate that would just block the whole efforts. So I just wanted to let Bret weigh in on that. What do you think about that? What can we do about the freedoms that we're losing right now? And what can you as a legislator do?
Thank you for your introduction. As far as the special session is concerned, I would love it if we could get called in for a special session, because that means, we would be taking part in actually doing representing Arizona the way we should be. Currently, the law that was put in place that is giving the executive the authority that he has right now, I believe was put in place back in 2011, or maybe it was 2002. I know it had to do with 9/11. And I don't think it was intended for this elongated period of time. The way things are being handled right now, in my opinion, is not how our republic is intended to be ran. We do have 90 legislators, 30 in the Senate, 60 in the House, that were elected to represent the entire state. And in my personal opinion, and there are other states that the legislature would be called in or would be weighing in on something like this. Like, for example, I do believe the governor should have the authority to do what he's doing to an extent, initially when something comes up. But at some point, the legislature should be brought in to weigh in and vote on whether or not something like this should continue on. There should be scientific data and evidence explaining why this is supposed to be happening, and then we should be weighing in on it. And just like any other issue in the state of Arizona, the legislature, we have 3 branches of government, and right now we're only standing on 2. Now, like you said earlier in your introduction, when this whole thing first started happening, and there was in the House, there were several Democrats on the floor that were talking about sign you die and ending the session. And yeah, I was a little heated and stood up and gave an impassionate speech on why I thought that was a very bad idea. In other meetings, caucus meetings that we had, I did mention, I did warn our leadership that if we were to end the session, that this was a possibility, that we would lose all of our leverage. And we have a lot of businesses out there that people have invested their entire life savings, possibly taken out equity in their homes and that kind of stuff that they've invested in businesses, and they're losing their life savings because of they can't do business. And I was quoted in the Arizona Republic very early on. The initial steps that were taken, I did agree with. I was happy with. If you compared Arizona to other states at the time, our initial stay-at-home order was less stringent than some other states. But when the modeling, the original models was predicting 2.2 million deaths and things of that nature. When it started to become abundantly clear that those models were wrong, and that was very clear. My opinion changed, and I've stated many times that we needed to get our economy back up and running, get people back to work, because there is so many things that is going to be happening, as far as like domestic violence calls, crime rates going up, suicides, overdoses, it's things from various things in the medical field where people are, missing, for example, cancer screenings and stuff like that. I mean, I read in the UK that they were estimating there was going to be another 35,000 deaths because people were missing their cancer screenings, and things like this. There's so many offshoots of how this is going to affect stuff that, in my opinion, that the legislature should definitely be involved in this decision-making process. And there are other states that it does operate that way. So it's not like we would be setting a precedent in doing it. I just truly believe that we're being kept at bay, and that's not good.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on, is because you've been one of the most, vocal people in the legislature about, repealing the governor's orders and giving us more freedom back. But a lot of people, I've been really frustrated. I'm just tired of people ragging on our good legislators. We had posted our scorecard and we had somebody comment, Warren Peterson's terrible because he isn't overturning the governor. And I just don't think that's fair to you guys. I know you and Bret and Warren are both doing a fantastic job, and you guys are doing everything you guys can, but you're just held up by 3 senators that are Republicans that are acting like Democrats right now, and that's why they couldn't pass the COVID-19 liability bill. And the same thing would happen in a special session. So I think the focus should be right now is on the election. Maybe we can get some more Republicans in the legislature to help you guys out in the future to promote liberty. So I don't know if there's anything you have to say about like what can we do to strengthen our majority in the legislature for liberty this year and all that.
Well, one of the things I'm seeing after the primary, and we see this so often after a primary, is that unfortunately we have a lot of infighting and squabbling because the people that we liked didn't make it through the primary and things like that. And that's just unfortunate. And we really have to stop doing that. If your candidate didn't make it through in a primary, then, I would venture to say, in most cases, almost any Republican, whether they're moderate or very conservative, in my opinion, as far as how I see things, is going to be better off than putting any Democrat in that position. So, we got to set our pride aside and think about the whole picture. And that's kind of what I try to do on any issue, is I try to take in as much information as I possibly can and look at the whole picture. Because if we're just going to sit here and we're going to say, I'm not going to vote for this person because, for whatever reason, but at the same time, if you agree with somebody 80% of the time versus somebody that you only agree with 40% of the time, that's still a win. And we got to recognize that. There are some races from the numbers that I looked at in the primaries. The Democrats came out in the primary and they put up some big numbers in a lot of races. And it's important that we stick together and that we work together and we don't have this infighting. And, I would love it if we had a super majority and we weren't, we could call ourselves back into session and we weren't relying upon the executive to do so. That would be great. And the only way we can get there, right now, the situation we're in is an example of the reasons why we can't rest on our laurels and just sit here and think that, elections don't matter. They absolutely matter. And these are the reasons why. We're living them right now. And, sitting around waiting until something like this comes up, when it comes up, it's too late. You can't change it. Like we're in right now, we can't call ourselves back. And, the ideal situation would be if I had one wish in regards to this subject, I would wish that the governor would set the narrative, call us back to work on whatever specific issue, whether it be school liability, so the schools can reopen without the risk factor of going against the current guidance and things of that nature. Elections are important, and we have to get past the primary and move on. And that's probably the most important thing. I said it on social media a while back. I seen some people commenting on, the U.S. Senate race. And my comment was, I don't care who you vote for in the primary, just as long as you vote for whoever wins the primary in the Republican Party. That's what matters.
Yeah, and looking at the national scene, Arizona is definitely a big target state. So in addition to having our Senate candidate decided, Biden has also nominated Harris as his vice presidential candidate. And I know here in Arizona, criminal justice reform has been a big issue. And my take is they're not a very good ticket on that issue. But would you touch a little bit on how those national candidacies are going to affect things here in Arizona?
Well, I think the candidacy will definitely have an effect. But I think even more so than the candidacy, in my humble opinion right now, is the political climate we're in and everything that we're seeing across the country as far as protests, riots, breaking into stores, all the looting, that kind of stuff. I mean, we've just, things have just gotten so out of control. I can't put my finger on it, but I am hearing that, there are a lot of people in the, on the, I would say, the more moderate side of the left, and even the independents on the lean left are frustrated with how things are right now, with schools not opening, their children not being able to get back into school, the whole defund the police initiative. I mean, they have just went so far left that I think I'm hoping that there's a major realization coming on that those things are going to have a bigger issue than necessarily just the candidacy. And the candidacy is important simply because I think everybody realizes that Biden, if he were to be elected, I think everybody's guessing that he's not going to make it through, or he would be a puppet at the least and do whatever the left wants him to do. I wouldn't be surprised if he were to be elected that before that term ended, Kamala would be the president. But I'm just guessing.
And you touched on some of what I was thinking about with there, where people are so frustrated on many of these points, and does her stances on some of these issues like police conduct play more to our favor, or is that going to rally support for them?
I definitely think, extreme issues like that, I think that will help us because, I'm seeing that in specific communities that there are, that they are pushing back against the whole defund the police initiative and things like that. It's too far out there. It's too ludicrous. It's to the point where, how can you have a functioning society if you're not going to have some sort of entity that is going to keep control? Whether we like it or not, there's good and evil in the world, and you're not going to get rid of all the evil, and there's going to have to be the people there that are going to come in and respond and things of that nature. So I definitely think the stance on those issues, I do find it interesting, all the stuff being pointed out about the things that Kamala has said about Biden's accusers, that she believed them. So that's an interesting point of view, but I think you're on the right track there. At least I think we're thinking alike.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that needs to play into the messaging we do through the general election.
Yeah, I would agree. If you look at you compare the left and the right, like just for example, just about every issue that my opponent, both my and Representative Fincham's opponent, were polar opposites, and on pretty much every single issue. And so it's a very staunch difference in political ideologies, polarization, however you want to put it. I think I'm hoping, wishing, and praying that come November, where President Trump is still in office, and we have 4 more years, and we can continue righting the ship and keep on, because if we don't, we're going to have a lot of problems.
Absolutely. I think here at the RLC, we try to brand ourselves as the conscience of the Republican Party, and definitely push everybody to adhere to the party's principles more. But I think we're going to be better positioned to do that if Arizona comes up big for Republicans in November than we will if the outcome goes the other way. I think just to wrap everything up as a final question are there any races that you saw coming out of the primary where some of these things we're talking about will help us gain an advantage in any of these close races?
Well, if my suspicions are right, and again, I can't put my finger on this. This is just, me, how I think and things of that nature. But I'm hoping that some of these closer races, like with Representative Bullock and Anthony Kern, and then up in LD6 with Representative Blackman, those are 2 districts that they have some tight races in. And, I'm hoping that what we've been discussing here for the past few minutes plays a factor, and you know, opens those races up a little bit to where they're not quite as tight. But you know, the key factor is, you know, if one of us doesn't vote on a bill or on an issue the way you like us, I mean, I understand sometimes there's single issue voters, but you know, like I said before, if you got somebody that votes the way you think 80% of the time, then that's better than having somebody that votes 40% of the time your way. And, you know, if you like low taxes, if you like your Second Amendment rights, if, you know, you don't want anything to do with defund the police and those kinds of issues, then by all means, you better be voting Republican, because you guys know this. When you get up there, very, very rarely will any of them step out of line and vote against what their minority leader tries to dictate.
Well, we appreciate your taking some time to talk to us. And we're definitely looking forward to working with you and a number of the other legislators that you've just mentioned when the session opens back up.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. If there's anything else, I'm happy to talk about it.
But I don't know if you wanted to say anything about what to expect maybe next session after a response to all that's happening right now, what we could expect.
One of the things you should expect next session, assuming that we keep the majority, is you're probably going to see a ballot initiative to change the current circumstance, as far as there may even be not only a ballot initiative but a bill to put through, and if that doesn't work, to change where it would bring us into this current situation where we would weigh in, say, after 14 days or 30 days or something like that. I think that's extremely important. You know, I, for one, I'm going to be running a lot of bills that I ran this session, this past session, because, you know, everything got tanked. And, you know, I'll be running my criminal justice reform bill again, HB 2402, the certificate of second chance bill. There was another small criminal justice reform bill that everybody loved that I'll be running again. You know, stuff like that, you know, you're going to see a lot of the same issues. You'll probably see some new stuff, but it's going to kind of, a lot of it will, I anticipate, will be a repeat of this session because everything kind of got flushed down the drain. But you know, there has been some issues that this whole thing has brought to light that definitely needs to be corrected. You know, so I would look for that.
Thanks a lot for your time, Bret. We really appreciate you doing this, and keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Have a good night.
You too.